A bunch of people, well, a few people who aren't here.
Yeah, polls is just,
So I saw it's polls. All right. This is the House Judiciary Committee. It's Friday night on April the 5th. And here we are. It's 7 o'clock. And we have several other bills that we were unable to get to on our previous vote list. So what we're going to do right now is we're going to go to Senate Bill 468. 468 from Senator McCray on private home detention monitoring. Is there an amendment? There was an amendment. So there are several amendments, actually. Delegate Tomlinson has one. Delegate Tomlinson has several. Delegate Tomlinson has several amendments to 468. So why don't we do this? Here's what the bill does right now. So the bill as it came from the Senate indicates that if a person, the defendant subject to private home monitoring has violated a condition of home detention monitoring, the private home detention monitoring agency responsible for monitoring the defendant shall notify within 24 hours the court that ordered private home detention monitoring as a condition of defendant's pretrial release, and the designated law enforcement agency is determined by the court in the city or in the county where the court is located. If they determine that the person has tampered with the home monitoring equipment or failed to maintain the equipment as required by a court order, they have to notify everybody within an hour. And if it's determined that a defendant subject to private home detention monitoring has entered an area that the defendant expressly prohibited from entering as a condition of pretrial release, the private home detention monitoring agency responsible has to notify immediately. So there's a fine of $1,000 for the first day and $250 for each subsequent day if they fail to report. To that end, so now we have several amendments, including one from Delegate Cardin and 3 from Delegate Tomlinson. And since Delegate Tomlinson has 3, I'm going to start with his because I think you wanted to make an amendment to your amendment. If I on the fee,
did you not?
6 hour thing.
Yeah. So that's fine, but I'll wait.
all right, we'll just go ahead.
You want to go first? Because I think we might have gone for the kind of the same thing.
You're kind of in the same place. So Delegate Tomlinson has 3 amendments. One that changes immediately to within 3 hours. Then another one that changes the 1 hour standard if they are if the EHM has been tampered with. And then the third one, maintain and charge. If they failed to charge to electrify the home monitoring equipment, I guess is in 2 places. Delegate Tomlinson would change it from failed to maintain to fail to charge is your 3rd amendment as I read it.
Yeah. I think that might be the only one that I was going to keep because are you hitting on the same with the time?
I just have the 1 hour and the immediate that I have in mind.
Yeah, I think,
and I have the amendment drafted exactly as I want it. That Claire did an amazing job getting it together like within like a minute after we discussed
The
it.
one that Hunter sent out.
Yeah.
Okay.
What?
I think I was.
So
I'm not sure that they did add 6 hours. I'm looking in the bill as it came over. I don't think they added 6 hours anywhere. I don't see that. All right, we're going to Delegate Cardin. Let's start with Delegate Cardin. Do I have the right amendment? And it's 753928.
no,
Okay.
the amendment
That
is
explains a lot.
203220/1. And it was, and Hunter should have sent it out at, it looks like he sent it out like at
So I don't have
2:50 in the afternoon. Everybody?
Huh? You're getting the amendment for me. Oh, okay. In the meantime, send.
Would you like me to explain the amendment?
Yes, Delegate Cardin, would you please tell us what the amendment does?
Thank you. The amendment on page 3, line 14, it strikes 1 hour that they have to give notice within an hour, and it changes it to 6 hours. And in line 25, I'm sorry, this is on page 3. Page 3, line 25, it changes that they have to give notice immediately and changes it to 6 hours. And just to explain it, the home monitoring company needs to give, in the first scenario, they have to give notice of a violation of what's considered an exclusionary zone, I believe it is. And there was some talk and discussion as to whether they have to determine whether this was really a violation or this is just a snafu that perhaps they drove by and it signaled that there was a violation, even though it was unintentional, and it would be inappropriate for them to notice it. And if it happens perhaps every single day for like 2 hours a day, that's a different story than if it happens once by accident. And the other issue is there could be some technical issues with being able to do it quickly. And so that's why we changed it to 6 hours. It seemed to me, I spoke with Baltimore City per the request of Delegate Embry, and I spoke with Baltimore County that's interested in this as well, because they're supporting the city on this. They all want to see this policy, and they didn't think that 6 hours was a problem for them. In addition, the second term immediately is vague. And so just to be consistent and to give adequate notice, I thought 6 hours was appropriate. So I changed that to 6 hours. Again, I didn't get any pushback from any of the advocates that I spoke to. And they said that if they find that it should be done faster in the coming year, that they would reach out to us next year and try and change that. So I would move that amendment.
Motion to move the amendment is a second. There's a second.
Summarize it, please.
Claire, go ahead.
The amendments require a private home detention monitoring agency to notify the court and designated law enforcement agency within 6 hours after determining that a defendant has tampered with or failed to maintain home detention monitoring equipment or has entered an area that the defendant is expressly prohibited from entering.
We haven't done that yet. That's the amendment before us.
The reason is, number one, in terms of exclusionary zones, there has to be a determination that it was an actual violation and not that it was simply a drive-by type issue. That's number one. And number two, technically, if it happens at, say, 4 o'clock in the morning, and they notify do they have to notify law enforcement and the court, or just the court, Claire? Both. They have to notify
Yes.
both. What is the value of notifying the court at 4 o'clock in the morning when they don't open up until 9? So thinking that this would just be much more workable and giving everybody the opportunity to do it.
But I guess the question is also, though, if it's a designated law enforcement agency who wants to know, not necessarily the court. And so the court's finding out what's going on is kind of, I mean, they should get notice when it happens. And I'm not opposed to these two institutions kind of being connected to each other, but the law enforcement agency, it seems like time is of the essence in some of those cases. So why do they need? In some of my conversations, it was over and over. They said we'd have to set up an automated system where we would automatically let people know when somebody cut off their box, the home detention equipment, or entered into an area that they weren't supposed to be, and it was their point was, hey, we do some investigation as to what's going on. I'm kind of wondering, is that actually in their bailiwick to do? Is that what we're expecting these companies to do? I thought we were just expecting them to know whether
Sure.
their equipment is working or not.
So in terms of, you have the issue of cutting off a BAM versus the battery dying. And those are all included in that second piece of the amendment, line 25. But the other issue that you have is that we have a bill coming up, or that we passed, that puts together a task force to study this and to figure out what is the best practices, and then to maybe put that to them to say, yes, you should not be doing this, or you should be doing this. But I think it would be premature to start telling them what they are. No, to make a determination that if there's inconsistency in how the different companies are doing it, then we should come up with a policy based on, best practices that could come out of the work group, not necessarily out of us just saying, this is the way we want to do it here in this particular instance now.
Thank you. And I oppose changing the law, and I want to explain why. And I appreciate you speaking to the city and county, who, I want to be clear, don't support the amendment. I think, very much want to bill to pass, is their position. So this is a public safety bill. This is born out of a desire in the city of Baltimore, where 2/3 of the people who are under this kind of monitoring live and are monitored, because we've had situations where law enforcement was not notified and bad things have happened. Under the existing regulations, DPSCS regulations, these companies are required to monitor 24/7. They have to have a person there 24/7. This notification is just an email. It's not some elaborate notice. They're also required to notify immediately for an escape. So that already exists. They're already under that obligation. So I understand the concern, but these exclusion zones exist in a subset of all of these cases, and they exist where there's a victim, or maybe there's a school that the person has to stay away from because of what they were charged with. These are really important instances, and I think 6 hours is not. We've had no data, no information as to why it's impossible or impracticable, and I just think it's really important. If the equipment's not working, I think law enforcement should know. If they violated the exclusion zone, law enforcement should know. The city explained determined means it gives them a little wiggle room. They can see, like, if someone's driving on the edge of the exclusion zone, yes, that can be determining whether there's a violation. But I agree with the chair. They are not in a position to determine if it's okay that they're outside their victim's house or not. So I, very respectfully would encourage us to resist amendments that would change the timeframes. The Senate already did make some adjustments, and I think they're reasonable, and I would just ask that we not do any more. Thank you.
I'll just second everything that Delegate Embry just said.
I was just trying to clarify, Delegate Embry, what you were saying at the beginning there. Were you giving the hours for public, for ones that are run by the public entities?
I'm sorry. So the Department of Public Safety has a separate set under COMAR of regulations that govern the entities that they contract with, and they require 24/7, which I think the companies provide. So we are requiring them and paying them to provide that 24/7 supervision. So I don't think it's unreasonable to ask that they provide notification to law enforcement within that.
So this is a question for anybody, if anyone's got an answer. So this is obviously just pertaining to ones run to the private businesses that monitor these. What is the policy or the law for on the public side? Does anybody know?
Go ahead, Delegate Embry.
I know I've spoken about this before, but I did dig into the DJS. So DJS is the public, so only for juveniles. So the way it's structured, we heard testimony about this, is it's only based on every defendant. It's a court specifies what the notification is. So for each defendant, they have to see what is the court required in terms of notice. But if they require immediate notification, then DJS, if the juvenile has violated the circumstances, DJS will, they have to do immediate notification, but they will evaluate. They might even call them to see what's going on, but they do provide whatever the court orders, which is often immediate notification.
Okay.
I just respectfully, as much as I love my neighbor over here, respectfully disagree with a couple things that were suggested. First of all, In terms of paying, and we're paying them to do this. I mean, these people who are on home monitoring, most of them are paying for it themselves. So we're not paying. We're not giving them the authority to determine. I mean, yes, they do have the authority to say, oh yeah, this wasn't a violation, but we're not giving them the authority to determine whether they're going to report or not. And that was never under the suggestion. The question is, should it be done immediately? I see all kinds of problems with litigation and potential lawsuits if we keep the immediate in here for somebody who is, for example, not maintaining their battery. Now, if somebody doesn't maintain their battery and it goes off, it could go off, go on. It could be back and forth for just a little bit of time while the battery's losing time, and then all of a sudden they say, well, we did it immediately, but we waited until after it fully went uncharged, or we did it immediately and then it went back on, and then there's a question as to whether the person was improperly reported. I just think that we need to give a little bit of flexibility here. I think immediate is the wrong thing. I said 6 hours. I think 6 hours is fine. I am not aware. You said that we're dealing with, all these violations. Examples of violations on the private home monitoring system where there have been. I mean, I know that we had issues like in Brooklyn Park, but I don't believe that any of those violations were the people that we're talking about here. I could be wrong.
Yeah.
Okay. So I just think that you're trying to solve a problem that doesn't exist. And we're trying to say, while this work group is going on, let's make it reasonable so that we can adhere to everything, giving them 6 hours instead of an hour. I don't think that, and let me just say, the one other thing I want to say about exclusionary zones is I had a client who we got on, he was in jail for an extra 3 weeks because I was trying to get him approved on home monitoring, which the judge had approved, but the systems couldn't operationalize it because he was excluded from the hotel where the alleged incident happened. The hotel was like, 300 or 400 yards from his house. So in order for him to qualify to go out, he had to go a certain way. And every time he would go out of his house, he would violate. And so they had to figure out how to make it go. And he wanted to adhere to every single piece of it. So it would seem to me that, especially for the people who are behaving themselves and doing it right, that these groups that are actually doing everything right, let's give them the benefit of the doubt while we have this work group going to make specific recommendations as to what it should be. And if they say it should be immediate, we'll change the law at that time. That's what I would suggest.
There's been a motion and a second. Delegate Crutchfield.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just have a quick question. So what have you found to be immediate? I mean, what is the real, has that been defined anywhere? Or if it's not defined, what is usually really the time period that people report to just generally?
So I have no idea if this has been litigated ever before, but that's the exact issue that we have is instead of saying immediate, we need to give a certain amount of time because I think that you're going to have, well, is it when the guy notices it? Is it when the, when they notice it and it actually happened 20 minutes before? Are they going to be in violation because they didn't do it immediately? I mean,
so what, I guess I'm trying to find out what's the general time period that someone will notify. For example, okay, I realize that it's not working. Is it a general practice that it's within 2 hours, 4 hours? I mean, what is the information indicating?
I can't talk intelligently except what the questions I asked. I asked these questions to the gentleman from the home monitoring program who visited me in my office, and I asked him that question. And they say they alert as soon as they for an immediate. They alert as soon as they become aware, but oftentimes it's a mistake because there needs to be further, whether it's investigation or determination as
Okay.
to what's going on. And so, you know, I don't want to I see them then, you know, having exposure for potential liability if they're, you know, alerting prematurely.
Okay.
I
I'm
don't
just,
think there's gonna be a problem if they alert prematurely. I think that's they've alerted, they're done. They're
That's, they're not.
We're gonna take a vote on it.
Okay.
You know, let's not do that.
that's fine.
But,
mean, look-
but again, I guess very briefly, because they're gonna keep moving here. The question that I have is the reason that it's there as immediately is they're in an area. This isn't that they haven't done something with their battery. This is that they've entered an area where they're expressly prohibited from entering. So,
I think that's a
so
one-off.
allowing that instant notification is the precise reason for having somebody on electronic home monitoring. It is why you have it, is so that they don't go where they're not supposed to go. But, okay. Let's vote on it. It needs some flexibility, but also the penalty in the bill is a may, not a shall. I'll point that out. It's a may, not a shall, and they have to not knowingly fail to give notice. So if they can provide some evidence that that their equipment was broken down, that they didn't do it, then okay, fine. Then the secretary would go in a different direction. But, okay. There is a motion, there's an amendment on the table. It has been seconded regardless of what Delegate Moon says. And we're now going to vote. We're going to vote on it. All in favor of the amendment, please raise your hands. 1, 2, 3. All opposed. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. All right, the amendment is not adopted. We're on. Delegate Tomlinson, what's your pleasure?
The only one I want to push is the one-
Battery, the charge? All right, so committee, it's 163626. And it would change in 2 places on page 3, line 11. That they've tampered with home monitoring equipment and instead of failed to maintain, it would be failed to charge. And then on page 4, line 4, failed to maintain home monitoring equipment to be failed to charge. And so my question to you, Delegate Tomlinson, is charging it the only way that you have to maintain this equipment?
I think that was the intent of the language, but it does sound, I think using the word maintain,
I think
Isn't
that
exactly
covers
getting-
charging.
I mean, I think that's what it's supposed to mean is charge, but I feel like it's kind of a vague term, and I thought it would make more sense to actually just say it in plain English, say charge.
I think that charging something is specific. I think that maintaining something could include charging the equipment, but that's just me.
I mean,
Let's do this. You want to move the amendment?
Yes.
Do you want to, is there a second on the amendment? All right, we're on discussion on the amendment. And I'm going to go to Delegate Moon, then Delegate Conway, and I'll come back to you.
I don't have much to say, just at this late stage in the game, if something's not if it's not a mission critical change and we're not sure that it's gonna alter the interpretation of the bill, I would be very skeptical of making a change when we were just, otherwise it's done, so.
Yeah, that's what Delegate Conway was going to say. Delegate Tomlinson.
I was just gonna say, I mean, what if maintain goes beyond charge, what else is it supposed to be covering?
Not getting it wet, which is a critical part of properly maintaining the equipment. Would be the leadoff one. Cutting it would be a failure to maintain it because you'd be damaging it, but that goes.
I figured cutting would probably be
Tampered, I guess, is
yeah.
also covered by some of those things.
Yeah,
All right, do you wish to press your amendment?
yes.
All right, all in favor of the amendment, raise your hands. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Anybody opposed? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. The amendment is not adopted. We're on the bill. It's with no further, unless you're pushing, he's not pushing any further amendments. There's a motion for a favorable and a second. Is there further discussion on the bill without amendment? Seeing none. The vice chair?
Yes.
Yes. Crutchfield? Yes. Carden? Yes. Embry? Yes. Pasteur? Yes. Simmons? Yes. Phillips? Yes. Roberson? Yes. Tomlinson? Yes. Erican? Yes. Taylor? Yes. Simpson? Yes. Grammer? Yes. Moon? Yes. Valentine? Yes. Conaway? Yes. Kaufman? Yes. Williams?
Yes.
Yes. All right. Motion is, the motion is adopted. House Bill 614 is the cross file. Could I have a motion to just have the votes from, there are no, first of all, is there any opposition to conforming amendments that would make House Bill 614 look like the Senate bill that we just passed? All right, so moved and seconded. Without objection, we will adopt the amendments that will conform 614 to look like 468. And I'll ask for a unanimous motion. Does anyone object that the votes on 468 should be the votes on 614? Hearing none, we adopt that. The votes on 614 now are the votes on the votes from 468 are the votes on 614. So there's that. All right, that's a couple of them. So we're gonna move right along here. We're gonna go. Oh boy, it's a 1097. 1097. There are amendments. And how? 683126. 1097. The amendments are 683126. All right, and as I read the amendments, and Delegate Moon can correct me, and actually Holly, is Holly here? Holly, why don't you tell us what the amendments do?
Here, I can just sit over.
Yeah. There you go.
Okay.
Which one? 1097 is
Yeah.
not a direct cross file of any bill. Yes, this is only got the Senate bill on this one. No house. No house. No. Holly, you want to tell us what the amendments do?
Yep, let me flip the bill real fast, sorry. Okay, so the first part of the bill, I'll talk about the amendments first. The first part.
Turn
of
on
the
your
amendment-
mic and point it
The
to
first
you.
part of the amendments, alter penalties with regard to drug paraphernalia and controlled paraphernalia. This was an amendment, that came from House Bill 1209, and we brought that into this bill. So you will see that in your reprint on page 3, that starts. So the penalties go from 2 years to 1 year and from a fine not exceeding $2,000 to $1,000. The second part of the bill deals with an issue that came up with regard to retired officers. And it was an SB1 issue from 2023 that dealt with retired officers carrying onto real property, carrying and transporting firearms onto real property. And this was the SB1 part that dealt with real property and dwelling and signage components. So that is a fix for SB1. And the last part of the amendments strike the provisions in the bill that deal with theft of a firearm. There are other parts of the bill that came over from the Senate that deal with another SB1 fix with regard to DNR, Department of Natural Resources employees, letting them wear and carry to help in sensitive locations when there's a wild animal and take care of that. And then the other parts of the bill deal with gun buyback programs and require firearms that are traded in at these gun buyback programs to be destroyed versus sold and repurposed.
It's there. On the floor. It's there. Yeah, they were emailed at 2:25 today.
All right, so here we have a Christmas tree
Yeah.
decorated.
Yep.
Some parts of them people will find aesthetically pleasing. Some parts people may not find aesthetically pleasing. Having said that, I would say that the difference in the drug paraphernalia is that it's lowering the subsequent offender penalty, which in my experience, at least recently, is not something that is used a whole lot. But having said that, it lowers that penalty while at the same time fixing an issue for retired police officers, for DNR officers, and doing some of those other things. You left out the,
That's in there still.
and there's a trafficking of an illegal firearm language is still in there.
Yeah, that came over from the Senate, so that's in there too. That's the only component I left off is classifying the trafficking of a regulated firearm as a felony.
Yes, so that is still in the bill. Delegate Moon, do you have anything you want to say about the amendments since
Yeah.
this is mostly your lovely Christmas tree?
Thank you, Mr. Chair and colleagues. I apologize for the form of this bill. The Senate warned me they started working on a Christmas tree some days ago, and they started doing things, including junking up the Senate cross-file of our Kingpin bill that had the 4 gun felonies on it. So we had to accommodate what they were trying to do on a bill other than the one we were actually trying to pass. That's why this is happening like this. So on multiple vehicles, the Senate put out a few things they were trying to get done. I called them and I said, are you actually trying to get us to find homes for these? And they said, yes. So here we are. And so the bill is like our Kingpin bill. It's another guns and drugs omnibus bill that reforms multiple issues. 2 of the pieces on here were requested by law enforcement as fixes to SB1, allowing them to continue to carry firearms in places that they are not. Under the changes we made, the gun buyback simply requires, this is something the Senate worked on, it simply requires them to destroy the components and firearms that are collected in these programs. And the paraphernalia piece here is one that came out of subcommittee, but we weren't able to get it out for a vote in time. So it landed here. And that language also has been reviewed by the state's attorneys, and they are okay with this form of it. Remember, the alternative version of this bill was a full decriminalization of paraphernalia, which we've been working on for years, but everyone has swallowed their pride and taken this very modest adjustment instead. So all of these ended up in one bill. Yes.
As a reminder, not only is this not the full decriminalization, but just the paraphernalia, but it's only the change in penalties for possession of paraphernalia. And it has nothing to do with the redefinition of what paraphernalia is, which was part of that original bill. And there was a question that was brought up by Delegate Moon during the hearing about whether administration is even appropriate in manufacturing, and it should have been removed. And state's attorneys indicated that they would discuss that, but we left that off now because we didn't want to slow this thing down. So it's only about, the only things for paraphernalia is the reduction of the penalty to what is commensurate with possession of the actual narcotic. It should be the same as what it is with the possession of the paraphernalia. And that's what this does. Still.
So here's where we are. The amendment again, 683-126. Further, did we move the amendment? I'll take a motion on the amendment. Motion in a second. Okay. Yep. I just confused names too. So, it's hard for me right now. All right. All in favor of the amendment, raise your hands. 1, 2, 3, 4. For a second, I thought Holly was raising her hand. For a second, she was just scratching her shoulder. Anybody? I see. All right. Anybody opposed? Seeing none. All right. We're on the bill as amended. Motion for a favorable in a second. Questions, comments? Okie dokie. The vice chair. Okay, Delegate Tomlinson.
Delegate Moon, just to clarify, because I know it was yeah, what's your other bill? No, I'm talking about your House Bill 346. This does not cover, what's just been amended does not include all of the language about, yeah,
Correct.
correct, okay.
How about now? Any further questions? Seeing none, the vice chair. Yes, Crutchfield? Yes, Carden?
Yes.
Yes, Embry? Yes, Pasteur? Yes, Tolles? Yes, Schmidt? Is not here. Simmons? Yes, Boucher is not here. Phillips? Yes, Roberson? Yes, Tomlinson?
I will vote yes because the drug kingpin part was not added.
Good answer, good answer.
Delegate Erican?
Yeah.
There you go. Taylor? Taylor? Yes. Simpson? Yes. Grammer? No. Moon? Yes. Valentine? Yes. Conaway? Yes. Kaufman? Yes. Williams? Yes. Tomlinson got some help. All right. That's Senate Bill 1097. Are we ready on revenge porn? You're ready? All right, all right, all right, all right. Oh, but we don't have do we have all right, everybody. I want you all to be aware, everyone, as Patrick gets more and more disinterested in what's going on, he has continued to slump in the chair. So we have to finish before the time that Patrick falls onto the floor. And I'm just saying. All right. Thank you all very much. Do we have the Lopez bill too?
Yeah.
We don't.
We'll do the Senate bill first.
We'll do the Senate bill first and then are we just conforming hers? That's what we're doing?
That's what the plan is.
That was the plan was. All right, grab that file. All right, so Senate Bill 858. Okay, so there's a bill that Delegate Pippy had that we moved. There's a bill that Delegate Lopez had that we didn't move, but that dealt with some of the issues here. And so now before you, you have an amendment 453621 that takes a little bit from column A and a little bit from column B. 858, Senate Bill 858. There's a motion and a second on the amendment. Claire, would you mind please telling us what the amendment does? There she goes.
So as the chair said, it takes a little of both bills. The amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 establishes the crime of harassment by distribution of a deep fake image with a 5-year statute of limitations. And that's what was done in Delegate Pippy's bill that came through the Criminal Law Subcommittee. And amendment number 3 restores the crime of revenge porn and just clarifies that it does not include deep fake representations. That was also in Delegate Pippy's bill. And it keeps in the part of the Senate bill that allows a civil cause of action for deep fake images.
All right, Delegate Erican to begin and then Delegate Conaway.
Okay, so I understand what we're doing with Senator Hester's bill. Obviously, there's no direct cross file. Why are we moving the Lopez bill? Pippy's been working on this bill for a long time. So I just want to know why that's the bill that we're choosing to move instead of his. I mean.
So we did, we moved Pippy's bill. They have Pippy's bill.
I know, but is that the bill that's going to come back around? I mean, what's the final bill
I
going to look
think at
like?
this point, I believe that Delegate Pippy's bill probably has the best chance of making it back over the finish line. basically filing an insurance policy to make sure that the policy makes it through in one way, shape or form.
Okay, all right, I can stomach
So
that.
that's,
Thank you.
and that, again, Frank's question was answered. Are there further questions with regard to the amendment? Seeing none, all in favor of the amendment, please raise your hands. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Anybody opposed? There's a motion for a favorable on the amended bill. And a second. Is there any further discussion on this newly amended bill? Senate Bill 858. Seeing none. The Vice Chair? Crutchfield? Cardin? Embry? Pasteur? Tolles? I'm sorry? Oh, you okay? All right. Simmons? Yes. Phillips? Yes. Roberson? Yes. Tomlinson? Yes. Erican? Yes. Taylor? Yes. Simpson? Yes. Grammer? Yes. Moon? Yes. Valentine? Yes. Conaway? Yes. Kaufman? Yes. Williams? Yes. All right. So then we have House Bill 1062, which is now effectively going to become a cross-file. So I would ask for a motion to conform. Motion to conform and a second. Anybody objecting, I'll take a unanimous consent motion just to conform that to the bill that we just passed to 858. Any objection to conforming? 1062. So we're going to conform that to 858. Any objection? Hearing none, the amendment is adopted to conform. We'll go now on the bill as amended. Is there any objection to a unanimous consent motion to make the votes on Senate Bill 858 the same as the votes on 1062? So moved. Is there a second? All right. Any objection? Hearing none, the favorable motion is adopted on House Bill 1062. Now, Delegate Simpson has worked very, very hard. She has worked incredibly hard, and we have had a number of meetings with the administration regarding her legislation related to driver's licenses. And there is opposition from the administration that continues tonight. And it's at this point that we've had a conversation. I think Delegate Simpson is right to be extremely disappointed right now, and I can't solve that problem. But we are going to make, I'm going to propose an amendment to her bill that would change the length of time that a person has to be in arrears on their child support from 60 to 90 days. That would be the sum and substance of House Bill 311 and also the sum and substance of Senate Bill 174. I have committed to Delegate Simpson that over the interim, I'm going to have a chairman's letter on her behalf, and we're going to continue the work that she has started and the point that she has been trying to make to the administration in particular, that people are being suspended for their driver's licenses in many cases because of errors that are being made by the department. The department has acknowledged that they have issues related to errors, but are concerned that the scope of Delegate Simpson's bill would potentially put us out of federal compliance. I will say this, and I'm putting it on the record right now. We are going to seek to map out the problems that the department is having on these issues. We are going to be meeting with the department during the interim, and if necessary, this chair will not hesitate to help Delegate Simpson and support legislation in the next legislative session to address these issues if they're not addressed between between now and then. So I wanted to put that out there. Again, I want to acknowledge the passion that Delegate Simpson has absolutely displayed, and Delegate Taylor, as riding in the sidecar, has displayed on these things. They have worked very, very hard at this. And I think, I know that the vice chair and the subcommittee chair met with them, last week for quite a while to try and find a way forward, and we just haven't been able to. So we're going to at least try and get something over the line in time and go from there. So the amendments that I am offering would do just that. It would change the length of time that people have to be in arrears before the next step is taken in the process to lose their driver's license from 60 to 90 days. Is that correct? There's a motion and a second. All right. Is there discussion on my amendment? Delegate Tolles.
Okay. So the question I have, because I don't want to be left out of the fact that I also been trying to work on child support and ensuring that we do something equitable. With that being said, will this, I guess it's just a general question, because it's the first time I'm seeing it. How would that affect people being in the arrearages longer? Meaning it will be longer. So if they are there, I think it's 60 days versus 90 days, does that mean could possibly be in arrearages longer, making it more difficult for them to kind of claw themselves out of arrearages? Is that a possibility?
It may. There's also an open question as to whether this bill will get across the line in time. But having said that, and I've been candid with the delegate, I'm being candid on camera right now in front of everybody.
Right.
I'm not sure whether this is actually going to get there. There's partially, quite frankly, and I hate to trivialize this, wanting to make some acknowledgement of the work that the delegate has done on the bill. You've done a lot of work on this issue. There are advocates in the back of the room who have done a lot of work on this issue. And I think at this point, what we're just seeking to do is to acknowledge one small part of what Delegate Simpson has been advocating for, to allow that to move forward, to move over to the Senate, and then what the Senate decides to do with it is going to be up to the Senate. So that's where we are. There's a broader issue that needs to be addressed that goes to the substance of what the advocates have been advocating for years.
Absolutely.
Which is that the fundamental issue here is that the department has been unable to operate the computer system effectively that prevents these issues in the first place. And I will say the secretary and the secretary's staff acknowledge that and have acknowledged that in the meetings that we've had. So this issue of how they go about that process is distinct from what is in your bill, which addresses who can actually have their licenses suspended or not.
Yeah. And I would just say absolutely. And so, yeah, it addresses poverty, and this addresses, something different, notifications. I just want to, I think we all want the same thing, to ensure that individuals are not hurt by the system. So I just want to make sure this don't dig them into a deeper hole. And with that being said, I just want to publicly thank Secretary Lopez, his team, you, Mr. Chair, your vice chair as well, and the family law chair for just meeting with all of us all night long sometimes to get this issue resolved. And I think that, I just did want to not thank you as well for your patience. Thank you.
There's a motion for the previous question. We're on the amendment. All in favor of adopting the amendment, please raise your hands. Everybody, is there anybody opposed? Wouldn't have been surprised. All right. On the bill as amended, we could be on House Bill. What's easier for you? Doesn't matter. House Bill 311. All right. House Bill 311 on the bill as amended. The other bill will just conform. The vice chair? Yes. Crutchfield? Yes. Cardin? Yes. Embry? Yes. Pasteur? Yes. Tolles? Yes. Schmidt? Simmons? Yes. Phillips? Yes. Roberson? Yes. Tomlinson? Yes. Erican? No. Taylor? Yes. Simpson? Yes. Grammer, no. Moon, yes. Valentine, no. Conaway, yes. Kaufman, yes.
I'm gonna, as you say, Mr. Chair, I'm gonna vote to move the ball forward. And I think that's important, but I must say that I wish that Secretary Lopez and his team had worked more collaboratively with Delegate Simpson, but I want to move the ball forward, so I'll vote yes.
You want to add?
Yes.
And no thanks.
And then Williams,
Yes, I am a yes on this bill. And I think I want to add.
okay. Yes, you can explain your vote.
I want to thank. I think the heart of this. And all the advocates, we have definitely worked many hours, lots of time. I thank you, Chair, and especially the Vice Chair and my Chair of Family Law for working so diligently on this bill. I don't mind being the bite of the dog that makes a change. I have no problem with that whatsoever. And I appreciate that we are going to make sure that we take a look at this system. And I want to publicly apologize to all of the individuals that are going to continue to have their driver's license suspended while we try to work this out. People who lose their license, they lose their jobs, they're losing their insurance while we're trying to work this out. I apologize to you. I tried very hard. I'm glad you're giving some extra time, because let's please note that was also in that other delegate's bill, is to add this additional time. And that there are 36 other states that have extended more time than what we do offer in Maryland. And there are 27 other states that provide a judicial review and haven't lost a single federal dollar. And I want to thank the Maryland Judiciary, who stood up and said, this is a great bill, because they were looking forward to enacting this and providing people due process so that they don't leave the court system not knowing that that their license has been suspended. I mean, this is a tool, it's an important tool, but it should be used rarely, since we have so many other tools that are effective. The whole point, I've worked for the state for 30 years, is the best interest of the children, the best interest of Marylanders. And we're going to do it. That's my promise.
Thank you very much. All right, the favorable motion was adopted on House Bill 311. I'll take a unanimous consent motion to take amendments to conform 174 to House or conform. Take the language from 311 and conform it with Senate Bill 174, and that the vote from 311 would be the same for Senate Bill 174. Without objection? You're asking for a roll call?
Mm-hmm.
All right, Senate Bill 174, I will do the amendment. All in favor of the conforming amendment, please raise your hands. Anybody opposed? Seeing none, we've adopted the amendment. There's a motion for a favorable. Is there a second? All right. Any further discussion on now SB 174? Seeing none, the Vice Chair?
Yes.
Yes. Crutchfield? Yes. Cardin? Yes. Embry? Yes. Pasteur? Yes. Tolles? Yes. Simmons? No, because it's exactly the same as the previous bill. Delegate Simmons? Yes. Phillips? Roberson? Yes. Tomlinson? Yes. Erican? No. Taylor? Yes. Simpson? Yes. Grammer? No. Moon? Yes. Valentine? No. Conaway? Yes. Kaufman? Yes. Williams? Yes. All right. The favorable motion is adopted. We're now on to two remaining bills. Senate Bill 2 is Senator Carter's bill. There are some questions that were raised in the hearing that came up with regard to Senate Bill 2. I have been unable to hear from Senator Carter as to the work that needs to be done with to that legislation. So I need to hold on to that legislation. We may be voting off the floor tomorrow. Senate Bill 1098. Senate Bill 1098 was introduced in the House, and it was introduced in the House by Delegate Embry. We're not moving Delegate Embry's bill, but this legislation addresses an issue of whether people who have committed certain sexual offenses should receive diminution credits during the period of their incarceration at the Department of Corrections. There are no amendments, I don't think, and there's a motion for a favorable. Is there any discussion on this legislation? The legislation eliminates diminution credits for people who commit or are serving a sentence for violation of first-degree sex offense for 3303. I'm sorry, rape in the first degree?
Yeah.
Rape in the first degree.
There is no more first degree sex.
That's right. I'm sorry. Rape in the first degree. I'm sorry. All right, Delegate Moon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess so this bill, I guess in context with some of the other bills, it's hard not to read them together. I guess I have to admit. That being said, I would only hope that if we're moving this bill, I would hope that we keep them together. The other bills that are like this one that are on the floor, timing wise, it seems to me if we do one, we do them together. That would seem fair. That's
I
all I
think
have to
that's
say.
definitely something that that I think the speaker is looking at, to be sure. Yes.
Works with the speaker on those kinds of things, right?
Delegate Roberson.
Oh, I thought you got yours. Oh. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just quick questions for you. There is no crossfile of this. I know you mentioned.
There is a crossfile. It's Delegate Embry's, but we're not moving the crossfile.
Okay, got it. And then just so I'm clear, because we also looked at the Second Look Act, which also includes the look at diminution credits when somebody applies for a second look for 20 years. And so this kind of contradicts that bill, in my opinion. So I just want to be sure that I'm looking at the right thing. And I know this is not on this bill, but it's also looking at, to Delegate Moon's point, other bills that deal in the same aspect.
I mean, that's fair. I mean, that we are addressing part of the issue that the work group will be addressing in the other part of the Second Look Act, where we're addressing some part of the universe of people who would be able to get a modification in one part of the Second Look Act. So this is another thing that the work group in the future will also be looking at more generally.
Yeah, so I just, for that reason, because I am in favor of the Second Look Act, and this looked like this is in opposition of that, I am opposed to this bill because of that, because it stands contradictory to that. And I know this is in response to the Pavla Pair and that issue, but this is in contradiction to what we're trying to do, in my opinion. So I will be a no on this bill. And thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chairman, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that we're going down a slippery slope where we're changing days, because traditionally we haven't fooled too much with the diminution credits But now we are, so, I mean, the question is, once we start this, once we open this door, what's gonna be next? But I'm in support of the bill.
It's a valid point.
I'm in support of the
It-
bill.
I understand. Delegate Moon?
Sorry, let me just clarify too, the way I was thinking about this. I mean, we have one bill on the floor right now that seeks to give people a way out of some very tough crimes earlier. And then we have another bill that's seeking to eliminate the possibility for people to shave some of their time off. All I would suggest is, because they're seemingly in oppositional posture, I guess what I was suggesting is, if this bill is going to move late in the game like this, my hope would be we could assure that the Second Look Act is through the process before this one gets a final touch. And so that's how I'm personally thinking about these two bills and votes sitting next to each other on the floor this late in the game. And if I have my druthers, I'm going to try and hope that we can steer the process so that that is the outcome, that if we're going to take one, the other one will come behind, but not, if they don't, then we won't do the other one. That would be my hope. I can't promise anything, but that's sort of what I'm suggesting for those who are feeling uncomfortable. This is obviously a basket of bills that we're moving on these topics.
Are there further questions or comments regarding the bill? Delegate Carden?
Thank you. I just wanted to comment on Delegate Roberson's comment. I think that these are not at all in conflict. I think they're actually very, very congruent in that it just so happens that the people that are going to be impacted by this legislation are going to hit their 20 years more likely than people who qualify for diminution credits. And they're going to hit their 30, and they're probably going to, the way I read the legislation, the way I know the court system, those people are going to qualify from, in the second look, they're going to qualify for a motion. It's probably going to be denied. Then they're going to have to wait another 10 years to do it again. That is going to come much faster because of legislation like this. So I think that they actually might, if you look at it in a certain way, work together.
Delegate Taylor?
Looking through here, thank you,
Of
Mr.
course.
Chair. How does it work now? If you have a sexual offense, do you earn credits? So if essentially we are, from the date this bill would go into effect, would treat folks that have committed that crime differently than we've treated those who are
I
committing,
believe this is
who are
prospective.
currently confined.
Yeah, it's prospective. So people who have already been sentenced, it would not apply to them. It would be a prospective. And I think Delegate Embry can speak to that, perhaps, I think, a little bit as well. Delegate Embry?
Thank you. So this applies, the offense has to have occurred after the bill takes effect. So it's not just you have to be sentenced after, but you have to have committed the crime after the bill takes effect, so that you're fully knowledgeable about this when you're deciding whether to plead guilty and what sentence to plead guilty to. So that it is prospective only. I would also say, and I, appreciate everything that's been said, and especially Delegate Moon's point, and I agree with it. But this is not a very dramatic change. We currently disallow diminution credits for anyone convicted of first-degree rape if the victim is 16 or under, I believe. So this is just saying the age of the victim for first-degree rape only does not matter. So I just wanted to make that point, that this is not, in my view, a dramatic change. It's keeping the current structure, but just changing the age of the victim so that the age no longer matters, just for the crime of first-degree rape.
Is there a problem we're trying to fix here? I'm not sure. I just want.
Yes. So sexual offenses tend to have higher recidivism of sexual offenses. So it's not that there's higher recidivism, but if you commit a sexual offense, you're more likely to commit another sexual offense than someone who commits another crime. And the problem with release, it's called mandatory release, where you earn it mathematically and you're released, is the victim has no ability to say anything. There's no consideration of whether you could have committed 20 crimes previously, and that's not relevant. And so the parole commission, this is adding discretion to the process, not disallowing people from being released. They could hit their first parole eligible date before they would have even been eligible. for mandatory release, but it means that parole commissioners can consider the victim and their family, what they have to say, and they can also look at the past record. And the final thing I'll say that's different about sexual crimes generally is because in any sexual crime, the victim's conduct is scrutinized because consent is a defense. A lot of these cases plead out to lesser sentences than other violent crimes because putting the victim on the stand can be a tactical decision that maybe the victim doesn't want or the prosecutor decides it's not worth it. So you often get split sentences where the actual jail time is just not as high as you would see in a first-degree murder, for instance, or other violent crimes. So those are the reasons that I introduced the bill.
Thank you, Delegate Embry. Is this the first time this bill's been introduced for this topic? Thank you.
Well, mine is just thought is just very simple, just in looking at all of this as I was working on second look. And I think sort of with where Delegate Moon is, because it just seems like it's things that go bump in the night and it's just way too much. It's all of this about go away, taking. I just feel like it dilutes. All right, I'm being selfish because it's like diluting what we're doing. It's almost overkill on this. We are looking at something in second look that really is about your 20 years of consciously working on being someone else. Being a different person, feeling different, even atonement for what you've done. It is your road to Damascus, if you will. And that's why I like it, because of its pureness in the whole thing. And I just agree that they should not come up like this. Folks are having a hard enough time, many trying to process any of it and letting folks out. And I just want them to have a clean look at people who have consciously made the conscious decision not to just be peaceful, if you will, or seemingly so, but to do something for other people, to do something even for that system that is predicated on not making them good people or being successful.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So about 6 years ago, Patrick is, he's checking out. He's done. We're almost done. They said, we'll miss you. Yeah. So about 6 years ago, those of us who were here went on a field trip, and the field trip was to a child advocacy center in Howard County. And one of the questions that I wanted to have an answer to was, for sexual crimes, what does healing look like? What does recovery look like? And the unequivocal answer was, it does not exist. Rapists are gonna rape. I'm sorry, I wish it wasn't the case, but that's what the data shows. So this is a different category. This is a different animal. We're not looking at people who were young and just made a mistake. These people are unwell. And there is no therapy in the world that can take someone that cares so little about another person that they would rape them repeatedly often and then do it to another victim. We're not saving those people. We're not saving them. We're just not. I wish we were. Maybe one day we'll have some kind of magic pill that fixes it. But right now, everything I've read says it does not exist. So God bless you guys. I know you want to save everybody and you love everybody, and I think that's super sweet. But some people are irredeemable. They are. Sorry, y'all.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I feel responsible and convicted to say what I'm gonna say. So in what I have read, sometimes I struggle with it, but there is something in my belief system called salvation, even though I don't agree with it for some. Yes, Jesus. Yes, if you're gonna yell out Jesus. So therefore, that contradicts exactly what you had just said. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Okay. Yes.
All right. One at a time, and it's late, and it's April the 4th.
Okay.
While we love each other, we're all ready to go home.
Mm,
Oh, it's a fit.
Um,
Stop it.
yeah,
Stop.
Mr. Chairman, I move the previous question.
There's a motion for the previous question and a second. We're on the bill. There's a motion for a favorable on the bill. We've had debate. Okay. The vice chair.
I didn't get to say what I wanted to say, but
I'm
can
sorry.
I explain my vote then?
You can explain your
Okay,
vote.
let me explain my vote. So I'm a yes, and the reason why I am a yes is because there are several factors in second look. It's not just whether or not you've gone to any of the classes. It's the overall picture of who you are and how you have redeemed yourself. So for that reason, I am a yes.
Delegate Crutchfield.
Yes.
Yes. Delegate Cardin. Yes. Embry. Yes. Pasteur. No. Simmons. Yes. Phillips. Yes. Roberson. No. Tomlinson. Yes. Erican. Yes. Taylor. Yes. Simpson. Yes. Grammer. Yes. Moon. Yes. Valentine. Yes. Conaway. Yes. Kaufman.
Yes.
Yes. Williams. Yes. Motion is adopted. All right. We have one concurrence, which the Senate has asked us to recede from the House amendments in Senate Bill 182. This is the facial recognition bill. This is Delegate Moon's bill. I believe that he is going to ask me not to recede from our amendments. Is that correct? That is correct.
Correct.
Delegate Moon is going to be the chair of the conference committee, as this is all his fault. And now we're going to find two other people on the conference committee. Embry and Grammer. All right, so the motion is not to recede and to send to conference committee. All in favor of the motion not to recede, raise your hands. 1, 2, 3, 4. Facial recognition, not receding and setting up a conference committee. Anybody opposed? Seeing none. Motion is not. One opposition. That's fine. That concludes our voting session. We may be voting in between sessions tomorrow. We will see you tomorrow at 11 a.m. on the floor. We'll probably be voting over across